She remembers fire, but not why it burns inside her. She remembers his eyes, silver, endless, but not the life they once shared. What if the man who saved your life had once died for your soul? What if heaven wanted you erased, and the only one who could stop it was already damned? This is the story of a girl haunted by dreams, hunted by angels, and bound by a love older than time. If you believe that some souls are meant to find each other again, even through fire, exile, and death, then this story was made for you. And trust me, you won't want to forget a single heartbeat of it. Don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic fantasy stories like this, because here, we don't just tell tales, we resurrect them. The blade of shattered glass had carved into steel and flesh alike. The rain-slicked road swallowed her car whole. And then, silence. A silence too heavy to be real. When Emma awoke in the sterile light of the hospital, it wasn't the memory of pain or screams that haunted her. It was him, a man standing inside the fire, untouched by the flames, eyes like molten silver locked onto hers. He had lifted her from the wreckage with a gentleness that didn't belong to this world. No name, no voice, just a presence that felt like thunder restrained beneath human skin. And something deep within her, something ancient, knew him. Everyone called it a miracle. The nurses, the doctors, the reporters, all repeated the same story. She should have died, but somehow she'd been pulled free. No one could say by whom. The fire had consumed the car within seconds, and the only responder on scene had arrived far too late. Yet Emma remembered the heat of his hands, not burning, but feverish, sacred, and the brief moment where the world had stopped spinning, where she felt weightless, where she felt chosen. Her coat, recovered from the wreck, was scorched only on the inside. The fire had come from within. That night, sleep came in fits. Wind whispered through the cracked hospital window, carrying with it something sharper than air, the sound of wings, not birds, something vast, ancient, heavier than bone. She sat up. The room was dim, lit only by the monitor's green pulse, but when she stepped onto the floor, it was dusted with fine ash, warm to the touch, like remnants from a sacred fire long extinguished. And then she saw it, in the mirror, not her own reflection, but his, standing behind her, sorrow carved into the lines of his face like a sculpture grieving its own creator. Silver eyes, ash-flecked hair, a scar across his brow that pulsed like it remembered a war. She ran to the balcony, breath catching in her throat. Below, the city murmured with ordinary life, unaware. But in the alley, there he was, a silhouette cloaked in shadow, watching her with the reverence of a saint and the sorrow of a sinner. "Who are you?" she whispered into the night. He didn't answer. He simply lifted his face to hers, and in the blink between heartbeats, he was gone, swallowed by the sound of wind rushing upward like thunder on wings. Emma fell to her knees. Her lungs burned with cold air and something else, fear twisted with awe. The next morning, she demanded answers. The doctors humored her. Trauma, they said, could play tricks. But something changed when she was asked to remove her gown. 2 parallel scars, like healed incisions, ran diagonally from her shoulder blades to her mid-back. No surgeries, no medical records, just those lines, too precise, too symmetrical. And when her fingers grazed them, pain bloomed behind her eyes, sharp and holy, like someone pulling light from her bones. In the waiting room, a newspaper from over a decade ago sat forgotten. The headline read, "Girl Survives Highway Explosion. Witness claims she floated out of the flames." The photo showed a 10-year-old girl, wide-eyed, terrified. Emma, sleep, once her sanctuary, had become a battlefield. In dreams, Emma wandered through a ruined cathedral of white marble streaked with blood, where swords floated mid-air and voices argued above her head in a language older than fire. She walked barefoot across broken glass that didn't cut her, trailing embers with each step. And at the far end, standing beneath a shattered stained glass window, was herself, dressed in ceremonial white, glowing faintly, weeping. Her hair was longer, her eyes gold, but it was her. She whispered one name, Azrael. By morning, Emma could hardly breathe. The name clawed at her ribs, refusing to be forgotten. She searched it online. biblical references, angel of death, warrior of the end times, but nothing explained why it made her chest ache like a missing limb. That day, in the elevator at work, she caught a glimpse of something impossible. A feather, long and gray, tucked behind a man's collar. He vanished on the next floor. Her reality was unraveling, thread by luminous thread. Emma began recording her dreams, voice memos filled with half-finished sentences. The cathedral is burning again. Someone keeps screaming my name. I know I died in his arms, but not in this life. She stopped telling her friends, stopped attending meetings. Her world grew smaller, haunted by whispers she couldn't escape. The worst part wasn't the madness. It was the feeling that madness was a lie meant to keep her from remembering the truth. The dreams intensified. Now she could smell the incense, feel wind rushing past her ears as if falling from a great height. One night, she woke up choking, hands curled around the sheets as if grasping invisible wings. In the mirror, her eyes flashed silver for half a second, and then a voice echoed inside her skull, not in words, but in meaning. You were never meant to stay asleep. She pressed her hands to her ears and cried. She first saw him again across a crosswalk, still, silent, soaked in moonlight. No one else seemed to notice him, as if he existed in a different layer of reality. When she stepped into the road, time slowed. Her heart pounded. The rain vanished. Their eyes locked, and she remembered falling, with him, from somewhere high, surrounded by fire. Before she could speak, he turned and disappeared down the alley. She followed. The alley twisted longer than it should have. The walls bled with graffiti that looked like celestial script. He waited for her in the center, back turned, steam rising from his skin like incense. When he spoke, his voice was velvet scorched by brimstone. You shouldn't be here. She demanded answers. He gave her a name. Azrael. The way he said it made the air tremble. Why do I know you? She asked. His eyes glowed softly. Because part of you remembers loving me, before heaven burned for it. She touched his arm. His skin was burning hot, not like fever, but like divine punishment. He flinched at her touch, as if it hurt him to be close. They'll come for you, he whispered. They always do when you start to remember. She asked who they were. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back into the shadow, and with a sound like a flag snapping in storm wind, he vanished. But ash rained gently where he had stood. The next morning, her phone camera glitched. Every photo she took showed a blur beside her. Wings, feathers, fire. Her reflection flickered unnaturally, and every time she blinked, she swore she could still smell him. Iron, lightning, and myrrh. She whispered his name into the silence, like a spell. The air shivered in reply. In the days that followed, the pain in her back sharpened into heat. She stood beneath her shower, steam swirling like ghosts, and caught sight of herself in the mirror. The scars had darkened, grown jagged edges, and faint glyphs shimmered around them. Not human scars, not surgical, something older, carved into her by a force that believed in eternity. She took photos. By night, they vanished. In daylight, they reappeared. Desperate, Emma visited a spiritual healer recommended by a friend. The woman gasped as soon as she entered the room. Child, you're marked. Emma demanded answers. The woman traced the scars and whispered, You've been touched by the divine and by something exiled from it. She showed Emma a book of celestial lore. One drawing stopped her breath. A woman with glowing eyes and wings torn from her back. The girl who loved the fallen. The caption read. Memories surged like waves through Emma's chest. A battlefield. A promise. A kiss beneath collapsing stars. And a voice. If I fall for you, I fall forever. Her knees buckled. The woman caught her, whispering in a language Emma didn't understand. The room swam with symbols and scent. Sandalwood, sulfur, salt. And behind her eyes, Azrael screamed her name in a voice full of lightning. Later, Emma sat in her room, watching the sunset bleed across the window. She whispered, Why can't I remember all of it? Her voice cracked. Somewhere beyond sight, a figure stood watching from the rooftop across the street. Not Azrael, not human, and not alone. The old woman was waiting. She didn't seem surprised when Emma returned, trembling and desperate. You're waking up, she said softly, placing tea in front of her. The scent was strange. Lavender, iron, and burned paper. Emma begged for answers. The woman opened a drawer and retrieved a folded parchment. Inside, a name written in silver ink. Saria, that was you. Once, long ago, before the sky fell. Emma stared at the name, and something inside her broke and reassembled all at once. She saw herself in robes of starlight, surrounded by wings. A council, a choice, a touch, a fall. The woman explained, "You were a soul of balance, born human, blessed with the ability to anchor a celestial. You loved one, and doomed them both." Emma sobbed. "Why now? Why again?" The woman looked grave. "Because heaven never forgets, and neither does hell." From behind the curtain, a second figure stepped forward. A man cloaked in twilight, his eyes the color of rusted gold. He introduced himself as Malric, once a watcher, now a broken guide. He told her of the war, of the ones who chose humanity, and the price they paid. "Azrael wasn't cast out," he said. "He leapt. For you." The air in the room thickened, vibrating with truth. Malric handed her a small object, a key carved from bone and obsidian. "You'll need this when the veil shatters." Emma left that night changed. The stars above her seemed closer, the moon like a judge. She whispered Saria into the wind, and the name echoed back from places no human ear could hear. Behind her, two shadows followed. One burned, one crawled, neither human, neither kind. Emma didn't sleep for days. Something inside her was thrumming, like ancient machinery coming to life. The key pulsed with a rhythm that wasn't hers. It belonged to a world beneath this one, where memory bled into prophecy. She wandered until she found herself standing before an antique bookstore she'd never seen before, yet somehow recognized. Its windows were fogged. Its name, the Book of Echoes. Inside, it smelled of dust, candle wax, and something electric, like ozone before a storm. The shopkeeper, a pale woman with cataract-white eyes, said nothing. She simply placed a thick, leather-bound tome on the counter, already opened. No title, just a page that shimmered when Emma touched it. The letters rearranged themselves under her fingers, forming images. Her face, burning skies, a sword piercing a star. Every page told a story she hadn't lived, but felt down to her bones. Her fingers trembled. The woman whispered, "It doesn't just tell your past. It unlocks it." The book reacted to her blood. When she pricked her finger, an entire chapter opened. Symbols glowed red gold. She saw Azrael kneeling in fire, wings blackened and broken, offering his name in exchange for her life. Emma collapsed into a chair, weeping, not out of fear, but recognition. She had asked him to fall, begged him to. "I didn't want to die alone," she whispered, "and so he didn't let me." From the back of the store, something growled, a reminder she wasn't alone in this revelation. Before she left, the book changed one last time. Its pages burned away, revealing only a single symbol etched in ash. A conch shell, the same shape etched into the underside of the bone key. A whisper filled her mind. "The concha de luz will show you the soul's door." Emma stumbled out into the street as dusk fell, the weight of thousands of years pressing on her chest. Far above, a figure watched her from a rooftop, wings spread wide. Not Azrael. It began with the scent of sulfur in the rain. Emma walked home in silence, yet the shadows moved too sharply, bending where there was no wind. Lights flickered. Street cats hissed at nothing. Then came the first true sign. A man with too perfect skin, and a smile like a slit in silk approached her on the sidewalk. "Saria," he hissed. "They know." And then his eyes turned completely black. Before she could scream, a figure slammed into him from the sky, wings outstretched, wreathed in golden flame. Azrael, no longer just the man in the fire, but a warrior with purpose. He moved like gravity bowed to him, every strike precise and brutal. The demon was no match, but as it died, it whispered, "More are coming." We smelled her soul. Emma stared at Azrael. "What are they?" she asked. "Soul reclaimers," he said. "Hunters of the marked. And you, Emma, you shine like a beacon." The wind howled between them. "I should have stayed away," he said, "but I couldn't let them have you again." They fled into the night, taking refuge in a half-ruined church where the stained glass wept blood. There, he finally explained. The balance between heaven and earth had been broken long ago. Souls like hers, Nephilim-born, love-bound to the divine, were rare, unstable, and hunted. "You're not just a girl reborn," Azrael said. "You're the last thread holding back a flood." The metaphor chilled her. Her soul, a dam. Her death, a doorway. That night she cried in his arms, not for what she was, but for what she had made him become. "You were light," she whispered. "Now you're ash because of me." He held her tighter. "I'm not ash," he said. "I'm fire, and I burn for you." Above them, gargoyles twitched, alerting to distant wings. More were coming, and the next time, Azrael might not be fast enough. With every hour, the pressure in her mind grew louder. Memories didn't just return, they exploded. At the touch of a candle's flame, she remembered a battle among angels. At the smell of rain on stone, she recalled lying on Azrael's chest, listening to the sound of his heart before the war. "I knew this once," she whispered again and again. He nodded. "And you'll know it again." But there was pain in his eyes, because not all memories were beautiful. She remembered dying, not in this life, but a dozen before it. Emma, Soraya, had been reborn countless times, always finding Azrael, always falling in love again, and always being taken from him, by sword, by poison, by fire. "We are the story heaven keeps erasing," Azrael whispered, as they stood before a mural of wings torn in half. "But love always rewrites itself." Emma's hands shook. Her heart felt stretched across centuries, but it wasn't just the memories of love that came. She also remembered fire in her own hands. Power. She had once wielded light, not as a weapon, but as a beacon. That light began to flicker behind her ribs again. With Azrael's help, she began to summon it, not through anger, but through grief, through longing. And when her hands glowed for the first time, the scars on her back cracked open. No blood, just light. That night, while meditating, Emma whispered a question into the darkness. "Who am I now?" And the answer came, not from within, but from the room around her. A mirror shattered. Her reflection spoke. "You are the echo and the flame. You are the remembering." Emma didn't scream. She smiled. The bone key burned brighter now, leading her to the sea. Azrael watched her from the cliffs above as Emma walked the black shore, searching. Something called to her, not in words, but in feeling. Under a tide pool, she found it, a conch shell glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her breath. The concha de luz. When she held it, the world stilled, and the sound it made was not from this realm. Visions poured into her, ancient temples suspended in clouds, angels screaming as the veil between realms tore open, Emma standing at the center with the conch raised high, breaking the loop. Azrael told her the truth. This artifact could either imprison her soul forever, or set it free. "They fear what you are," he said, "but they fear more what you might choose to become." The shell, when held to her ear, revealed echoes of every version of her. The girl who bled for love, the warrior who chose peace, the martyr, the traitor. All her lives, all her choices. "What do I do with it?" she asked. Azrael placed a hand over hers. "You choose, finally, who you are, not who they made you to be." The shell glowed brighter, but as she turned to speak again, a blade of white fire crashed into the beach beside them. From the sky descended 3 seraphim, wings of glass and lightning, eyes burning with judgment. One of them pointed at Emma. "By divine order, your soul is to be reclaimed." Azrael stood before her, wings out, sword drawn. "Then let eternity break." The 3 seraphim hovered above the beach, their wings slicing wind into ribbons. Azrael stood in front of Emma, his back to her, sword raised. "She is not yours," he growled. But the lead seraph, tall, robed in white flame, only tilted his head. "She never was yours to love," he said coldly. Emma stepped forward. Her voice shook, but her spine didn't. "No, I wasn't his to love. I chose him. In every life." Lightning cracked the sky. One of the angels raised his blade, and Azrael moved to shield her. But Emma stopped him. She stepped forward, the concha de luz glowing in her palm, resonating with her heartbeat. "If I die now," she said, "you'll never get my soul back. You've tried across lifetimes, and each time, I found a way back to him." The seraphs hesitated. Doubt flickered. Power danced across Emma's skin like sparks in a storm. "This time," she whispered, "I end the game." The conch opened in her hand like a blooming flower of crystal. The light released was not gentle. It screamed. It roared. It shattered the sky above them into 1,000 pieces. And in that light, Emma remembered everything. Not just the love, the deaths, or the falls, but the first moment she chose him, not because he saved her, but because she saw his loneliness and offered her own as answer. "I am not a relic to be claimed," she said. "I am the echo of every soul you tried to cage." The angels retreated, but not in defeat. "You've bought time," one hissed. "Not salvation." They vanished into a storm of feathers. The light dimmed. Azrael turned to Emma, eyes wide. "You remember," he said. She nodded. "All of it." But the conch pulsed once more. A warning. The cycle was not broken yet. Not fully. Not until she chose whether to keep her soul anchored or let it burn clean and start new. Azrael led her to a forgotten forest, where the veil between worlds grew thin. The trees whispered in forgotten tongues. The leaves shimmered like faded wings. "This is where you first crossed over," he said, voice low. "Where you gave up your place in the mortal cycle. For me." The path was lined with withered feathers, some charred, some glowing faintly. Emma walked in silence. She felt the land pull at her soul like a tide. "It wants me back," she whispered. Azrael nodded. "Or to erase you completely." As they entered the heart of the forest, the air became heavy. Time unraveled. Emma saw flickers of all her past selves walking alongside her. Some in armor, some in chains, some radiant, some broken. They didn't speak. They watched. And they waited. At the center of the glade stood a stone altar and a mirror of black water, the soul pond. This was the place where the final decision had to be made: rebirth or reclamation. Malric appeared from the shadows. The fallen watcher looked weary. "Once you step into that water," he said, "you can either burn the cycle down or seal it in gold. Either way, you won't return the same." Emma asked if it was fair. Malric only laughed. "Nothing about love and eternity ever is." Azrael offered his hand. "Whatever you choose," he said. "I walk with you." She hesitated, then took his hand. Together, they stepped into the water. As Emma sank into the soul pond, her body disappeared, but her essence flared like wildfire. She floated inside a vast memory space, surrounded by echoes of her decisions. Each one hovered before her like orbs. The moment she asked Azrael to fall, the moment she chose to forget, the moment she died, again and again, for the sin of love. "You can let go," a voice said. It wasn't Azrael. It was herself, the version of her who stayed behind, the version who obeyed. They walked together. "You keep breaking fate," the other her whispered. "But you never change the ending," Emma cried. "Then help me choose a new one." The mirror. Emma placed a hand on her chest. "Then let part of you die." Emma understood. Some parts of her, fear, guilt, silence, would not pass into what came next. She screamed as they were burned away. Light and shadow twisted around her into wings. Azrael's voice pierced the veil. "Come back to me." And Emma, no longer just Emma, no longer just Saria, rose from the water, dripping starlight and crowned in silence. The pond behind her dried to crystal. Her scars were gone. In their place, sigils glowing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She was new. She was old. She was chosen. By herself. They came like fire raining from heaven, arcanes and seraphim, burning through clouds with purpose. The glade where Emma stood became a battlefield. Azrael summoned his sword, glowing brighter than ever. Malric raised a shield of smoke and memory. But Emma didn't run. She stood still, hands raised, the conch around her neck now silent, its power spent. "They want my soul," she said, "but they don't understand. I've already given it away. To myself." The angels demanded her surrender. She refused. The air exploded. Azrael fought like a storm unchained. Every movement both wrath and grace. Malric fell beside him, pierced through by a golden spear. Emma, surrounded, began to glow. "Let her burn out," a seraph shouted. But as they closed in, she unleashed the light, not from her hands, but from her truth. It wasn't magic. It was memory turned into force. Love forged into fire. Each blow they landed only made her brighter. One by one, the seraphim began to falter. "She's not just Nephilim," one gasped. "She's something else. She's beyond classification." The light seared the veil itself. Time wavered. The battlefield twisted. And then, the angels fled. Not out of defeat, but out of terror. Emma had become something heaven didn't expect. A soul no longer bound to their rules. Azrael fell to one knee. "You did it," he whispered. She walked to him, took his hand. "No," she said. "We did." Emma and Azrael stood at the edge of the world, where sky met sea, and no prophecy dared go. The glade behind them had turned to crystal, its trees singing gently in the wind. She was different now. Not just human. Not just Nephilim. Something new. "What are we now?" Azrael asked. Emma smiled softly. "Exiled. Enlightened. Ourselves." The sky above them showed no stars. Just space waiting to be filled. They walked for days into a forgotten land. No angels, no demons, no echoes. Just silence. Peace. But even peace had weight. Azrael wept one night beside the fire. "I miss the sound of your voice from 1,000 years ago." Emma held his hand. "You'll hear it again," she said. "In a new life. A new story." And he smiled. Just barely. "Then I'll fall for you all over again." They reached a high hill, where light bloomed like dawn, but never faded. There, Emma placed the shell on the earth and buried it. "If someone finds it," Azrael said, "what will they become?" She turned to him. "Someone who chooses. Like we did." In that moment the wind carried wings, but not chasing, not fleeing, just passing through. Perhaps others were walking their own paths now. Perhaps they too would remember. Years passed. Emma, now calling herself Saria once more, kept a journal, not of facts or dates, but of feelings, dreams, echoes. She wrote, "If you hear wings in the storm, don't run. They're not chasing you. They're calling you back to yourself." Children came to her cottage in the woods, asking for stories. She told them of angels, of fallen stars, of choices. She never said which ones were hers. Azrael grew quiet, gentle. He painted the skies in his dreams and left the rest behind. Once a week he'd ask, "Would you fall for me again?" And she'd smile, "Yes, even if the world burned with us." One night, as they watched the stars, Emma saw a young girl wandering the forest, lost, marked, glowing. She whispered, "Another soul has remembered." She stood, walked to the edge of the trees, and as the girl looked up, Emma unfurled her arms, and for the first time in this life, her wings returned, not of flesh, not of light, but of memory made manifest. And as she embraced the child, she whispered, "Every ending is a door, and you, little one, are the next story waiting to be told."